Hi everyone, Mickey with Sustainabros. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to talk a little bit about composting. The first thing I want to start off with is there's absolutely not just one way to compost. There is probably thousands of right ways, and so we're just going to talk theory and processes and things like that. So we built a new compost pile. I piled up these leaves 2 days ago. That was Saturday, and it's just leaves, grass clippings, stuff from the streets. These bags from the street. Opened them up, added some moisture, and the other thing that I added was a little bit of this sod. It was mostly Bermuda, little St. Augustine, but it had some soil into it. I had to dig the sod out for another project. So if you're building a compost pile, you do want to inoculate it if you're going to go with a bacterial approach. So there's really two processes that process decomposed matter quickly. That's bacteria and fungi. And so bacterial compost can be faster. It also generates a lot of heat. And so since we're going to be using kitchen scraps in this compost, that's why we're moving that direction. We want to make sure it has all the appropriate bacteria present in the soil that can help that process. The other path, which is fungal decomposition, it needs a lot less moisture. It's a little bit slower, but leaf mold compost is really valuable stuff. That's a fungally processed product, and that's basically piling up lots of leaves and just letting them sit and letting nature take its course. So we're going bacterial, but we are using really high carbon, mostly leaves. Underneath, you'll see I have it's a liner. It's basically, we have a sign shop nearby, so a great dumpster rate of material, but this is like a plasticky canvas, and I put it underneath to conserve soil moisture and to keep tree roots from coming up in. There's gives and takes, because if you put it directly on the ground, you're going to have a lot more of the life present and interacting with your compost, worms coming up in to feed and mice, things like that. But at the same time, we have a lot of trees nearby, and so the roots would come up if you're going to leave the compost and not turn it for a while. So that's going to do that. It's also going to conserve moisture in the pile. Any moisture that goes in is going to hit that surface and sit, and that's going to be basically like the water fountain for any living organisms that can go down and moisture will move up. So it's about moisture regulation. That's why I put it down, but no right way, one or the other. We also always use a top, and that is because I've found big rain really slows things down. When we're talking about moisture percentages, so fungi are probably the least moisture required, 30%, 40%. Bacteria like it around 50%, which you can see the moisture on the outside of the bag. A bag of leaves on the side of the street where I can see the moisture is like 50%. It's not necessarily heavy, it doesn't feel wet. And then this pile is actually higher than that because I was sitting with a hose by myself. So it's a little bit too wet for good growth, a little bit more air is needed. So I'm going to take those bags while we're working on this pile, and I'll mix it in and fluff it up, get some more air in. And yeah, I'm kind of trying to dry it out. But I use a cover, and that's so that the rain doesn't basically saturate your pile so much that it kills your bacteria inside. You can regulate the moisture better having it covered. Also, the bacterial and decomposition processes work better in the absence of sunlight. Sun does decompose matter, but it also is a different pathway. It's kind of our third, I guess. You could decompose things with just sunlight. So, a fun toy when you're playing with compost, observing compost, is this thermometer. It's about 70 degrees. Hey, you want to come see? I imagine this pile's not too hot because we haven't added a lot of our kitchen scraps, but here's our cheap broken thermometer, and for fun we'll put it in the pile and we'll see how high we go. So when we're talking about temperatures, that's kind of cool too. Right around 150 degrees is where it usually tops out at. That's where a lot of the there's called thermophilic bacteria, some of the bacteria that really can thrive in the hottest environments. Once it gets that hot, then it shifts to this bacterial group and they take over. But 150 is a good number because that's where weed seeds are killed and pathogens are killed. So if you're dealing with manures or compost that you want to really have not be bacterially active with bacteria that could be dangerous for health. Not that I'm not afraid of bacteria. That's some fear of bacteria is a anyway, different story. But so we're right at 110 degrees with just leaves off the street. I don't know if you got to zoom in, but yeah, we're at 110. So that brings in this really great, awesome realization that even just leaves, even with lower moisture or higher moisture, but anytime you have a pile like this, it is literally a space heater. And so, as an aside, you'll notice, boom, there's a citrus right there, and right down here is a little seedling starfruit. So these guys are going to go without protection this winter, and we're just going to observe, see if the compost pile and the structures around them can help. So it'll be interesting to see. It's a navel orange, and definitely not that strong. That was actually a rescue plant that someone gave me because it wasn't looking very good. So we're integrating, right? This is the permaculture principle. We're getting the heat generated from our compost and the yield of the compost itself. And speaking of, we composted last spring, so we still have a little bit left. This is the finished product, if you want to zoom in, of just leaves as the base, because we're kind of playing around, changing things up a little bit, but leaves as the base, and then kitchen scraps added continually over time, kind of high turning, so you'll see what it kind of looks like over time. It turns into really good stuff, and we take that and we use it for planting trees, and we use it for potting up seedlings and things like that. We cut it with other things if I find just field soil or dirt or other stuff, just to make it last a little longer. But that's what this will be. When you're dealing with composting leaves in particular, it's incredible, the volume reduction. So this pile of leaves would probably fill maybe 2 of these pots when it's fully decomposed. So you need a lot of space to get a lot of bang for your buck. This is, dealing with this size, it's more about capturing the waste stream resources, the food that the chickens won't eat or the worms can't process, that kind of stuff. So that's the purpose of this compost pile. So turning it, I found that, obviously, because there's a million right ways, turning it can speed up the process, but it definitely isn't necessary. So yeah, we'll see how we go. Let's look what we got. I like it when there's a little bit of grass clippings inside, and you can actually feel, this is an experiment. This is a bag untouched off the street. There it goes. It's about 90 degrees, maybe 85, so not that hot. Not as hot as our pile. But this will go on. And we got some leaves. So it's a little bit dry. And then just mix it up. Now mixing it up, definitely you don't want to do too often, because anytime you disturb the system, you're stopping those processes, kind of slowing things down, and then they speed back up when there's sufficient oxygen. So yeah, just wanted to mix that in. Lots of variety, lots of good stuff. So I hope that was helpful. I'll cover it up in a second, and we'll make sure that the rain kind of mostly washes off, and then we just wait. We have kitchen scraps here. They go in, banana peels, stuff like that. I like the pick a spot and just move your piles around, that kind of process, and it really brings in the macroorganisms, more than bacteria, like worms and little earwigs, roly-polies, that kind of stuff. So yeah, good luck in your own projects. I hope that helped. Take care and have a good one. Hey you guys, time to finish the end of that composting video. It's been a long time since an update. I kind of wish I had done it in between, but it's been 3 months about, and our initial leaves had actually settled quite a bit. This volume is from adding about 1.5 times on top of the initial volume. So I filled it up above the fence twice, and it's settled down each time since. We're at the beginning of March, and it's a little bit chilly today, but inside the pile right now is at about 120 in this spot. I put it in another spot over here, and it was just right around 100, so it's cooled off quite a bit. Today we're going to kind of look at what's going on inside And we're also going to add a little bit. I brought, we have the kitchen compost here, but I also have some grass clippings that I've been feeding to the chickens, and that's just extra that's gone bad. So we're going to add some older grass, and we're going to add some orange peels and banana peels, that kind of stuff. So let's take a peek inside. Alright, so here you can see the compost is a little wet. So my cover is not quite working. You can see the steam coming off and the activity. Now some of the things you might see, you know, orange rind, this is pomegranate. We'll also see some coffee grounds. There's a section right here that's coffee. Here, let me grab the thermometer so we can really get a feel for it. So that we're going up past 100. I know it's hard to see, it's because of the humidity inside of it. Still only about 120. But what really happens with lazy composting is that you go up and down, you cycle. You don't always stay at 150 because you're not really focused on getting a big blend of any one thing. So what I really want to see is that first stuff that I put down in that first video. It's going to be farther towards the bottom. A lot of this has been added since, and this has never been turned, not once. Nice, a dry patch. It's good for air. That's kind of cool. Some dry grounds. You always learn something new in a project like this. Maybe I'm digging the wrong direction. So you can see the moisture retention in the leaves, and there's some white, some fungal activity, even though there's a lot of heat. I actually did an experiment. I had some extra mycelium that had run on some newspaper, but it wasn't really good for anything. So yeah, we got fungi at the bottom. You can actually smell the orange peel coming out of it. I don't know how much steam is getting in the way, but yeah, this is 3 months. Here's a section of a lot of food, so it's not really mixed in. It's a lot of nitrogen, a lot of heat. Getting towards the bottom. What I'm really looking for are like anaerobic patches where it's slushy. See how this is still a little bit dry? That's real nice. And really active stuff. So these were our leaves. Let me see if it'll focus. Steaming now. Kind of see the process. Again, not super fast, but in another 3 months it'll be ready for some really nice like surface compost, like a hybrid mulch compost, or to be mixed in with some other material to plant in. So kind of our profile. I guess the bigger things I want to share is just the volume change, the definitely how much the leaves can settle and how much volume you need to add. Here's it's real steamy. Here's our hole. Dun, dun, dun. All that material. Alright, this might be too much video. Anyway, time to bury some stuff. Some grass and things. Set this down. Toss these in. First, some kitchen scraps. And then over here to the side, we'll do another pile. Grass. I want to just mix it all up. Maybe I'll just throw it on top and spread it out. There's no right way. We'll get some good feedback. It'll be good, kind of get some air down there where the other stuff was. I've seen patches of grass get really hot, even in the bags. You guys have probably seen it too. They kind of mat down. And anyway, so get some food underneath that cardboard. And then just let it sit. The moisture's pretty good, a little wet, but we definitely put some air in by mixing it all up. it'll probably heat up again. I've seen it go back up to 150 quite a few times when you put in fresh coffee grounds, anything like that. So let's cover it up in case we get more rain, and hope you enjoyed. Alright, quick video to show the finished compost. I did a couple videos earlier with this pile and how it was just leaves from the fall. We're in September now, so it's almost been a year since this pile was started. Actually, that's not true because I started it in January, but it's been a while. It sat all summer without a lot of addition. I wasn't around, so maybe a little bit got added. Bonnie's helping. All that material was on top, and the plastic was on top of that, and it had jungle. You see the jungle over there? It had grown on top of it, so it basically just sat there for a while. And what I'm doing now is I'm harvesting it, putting it in the bins to mix with some store-bought stuff. Just to take a look at it, you can see there's still visible leaves in a lot of sections, not fully broken down, and you can see how they kind of compacted into layers. But at the same time, there's a lot of humus as well. So here's kind of the profile. That top couple inches is younger and full of life. It was amazing the amount of sow bugs. They all ran this way, so I'll see if they're over here. There they are. Look at that. Alright, pull them out. So lots of sow bugs and roaches. Quite a few big worms. So you see them up there. Another quality. There's a big roach. So that was in that top layer right near the surface in all this junk. There's a lot of that. And what I'm after is this middle layer. You can see basically like worm casting crumbles, just incredible structure with pockets of leaves. And this is because I had some that were mown, some that weren't. And this pile, if you remember, was add little bits at a time. You know, dump a bucket here, and just bury it in. And so some of these sections are right around where there might have been food scraps, where there's a little more humus. But I'm going to mix it with some other, you know, store-bought stuff, cheaper stuff with a lot more wood and bark, and cut it that way. And if I had any topsoil, I'd probably mix some in as well. Here's a little avocado peel. But again, really good structure. I like all the crumbles, and I'm always learning too, but I figured I'd take a video and document this one. And then I'm gonna harvest most of it, leave some, and then just pile it right back up. For me, I think these leaves work just fine in a soil mix. The ones that are really more than halfway gone, they crumble real easily. They make good media, good planting mix. Alright, so here's the finished harvest from the leaves from last spring, last winter. I'm not taking all of it. I'm going to leave some in there, mostly because I'm out of buckets, but also to help regenerate the pile. I already showed it to you, just a lot of clods and structure and bugs. Good feedback. I might do some things different, but I'm no scientist. But I got all this material and plenty more coming out of green material, and also all of the muck from the worm bin, because it's been getting flooded. And so basically worm castings are going to go in here, and then I'll just be waiting for the browns. I'll probably get a few browns and turn them in, which is kind of backwards, but I'll try it and see how it goes.